The story begins with an ordinary salaryman describing his exhausting daily routine, long working hours and crowded train trips, until the day he is reincarnated as a lord in another world, where he dreams of changing his village. However, when he wakes up he is shocked to discover that he has small hands and realizes he's a child. He walks to a window and looks out over the village. Suddenly, a maid rushes in warning him that it is dangerous. He replies that he was just looking at the beautiful city view, leaving her surprised that a 2-year-old could use such difficult words. This makes him wonder what she's talking about, because he knows that she's his personal maid till his name is Van Fertio. His father is Marcus Jalpa, and he has 3 older brothers, Mercia, Jard and Sesto. She confirms that he's correct, though he still has no idea where he is. Next, when his family gathers for breakfast, the maids praise him for every little thing he does, making him wonder if he's a VIP. He realizes that he has been reborn in this world with all the memories of his previous life in Japan intact. Jalpa asks Jard what he'll be studying today. Jard replies that he'll be learning fire magic and battle formations. Then Jalpa asks Sesto about his plans, and Sesto replies that he'll be studying magic. When he asks Van what he intends to do, Van says he wants to study the nation's culture and history, causing him to burst into laughter. He says he thought he had spoiled Van because he's the last child of his late wife Mira. Yet at only 2, he already seems like a fine young man, and he's certain that he'll possess the powerful fire magic of his parents. He learns that magical aptitude is important in this world, where magic is used to protect people and individuals are expected to have one of the 4 elemental magics: fire, water, wind, or earth, and those who possess other forms of magic are often seen as a disgrace. Since his father and brothers all possess one of the 4 elemental affinities, he looks forward to discovering his own abilities. Next, he asks Till whether there is only one port where ships can sail, and she explains that huge monsters inhabit the deep ocean, meaning they could be attacked from anywhere else. Then he asks about the different races in the world. She begins explaining that there are dwarves, elves, and other races, but the other maids interrupt her, saying that it's too complicated for him. Van says it's fine because he wants to learn everything he can and then asks about magical tools, prompting her to explain that magic crystals, gemstones, and special rocks and ores can store magical energy. These materials are used to create magical tools that correspond to a person's magical aptitude. Just then, a butler arrives and says that since he's 2, he knows that he's learning to read and do basic numeracy. Van reveals that his name is Esparta, a talented butler who has worked for his father for many years, and Van thinks he's scary. When Van says he can do a little addition and subtraction, he quickly asks what 2 plus 3 will be. Van answers correctly, and he decides to become his tutor. Van later reveals that he was then forced through hellish lessons, though as a result, he was able to read and write within a few weeks. Even so, he can't understand how this is suitable for a 2-year-old, and for the next 2 years he spends every day studying. When he turns 4, he begins swordsmanship training, though he struggles to defeat Till, who constantly teases him about it. The other maids scold her for insulting Val like that and tell him to punish her. He says he doesn't mind, yet they insist that disrespecting nobility is considered a crime, so the other maids hold her and wait for punishment. He simply flicks her forehead and says the matter is settled and smiles at her. He continues training every day, and when he turns 5 he can spar with the older soldiers in training. Although they're still children, their attacks are too simple, but thanks to the experience from his past life, he makes a huge difference and earns compliments from other children. They also praise him because he treats them kindly despite their lower status, unlike his brother, and they conclude that he's a strange young boy. While taking a break, a man named D approaches him, and it is revealed that he's the deputy commander of the chivalric order. He examines Val's hands and says that his skin is soft, even though he must be training at night. But Val replies that his studies are too tough for that. He then reveals that Esparta has been making him study 3 times harder than normal, which shocks Val, and he realizes why he was the only one studying at night. He then offers to personally teach him swordsmanship and promises to make him the nation's greatest swordsman. But Val replies that he enjoys both studying and swordplay and intends to do his best in both. Still, he insists on giving him sword lessons. Although he promises to go easy on him because he's a child, it quickly turns out to be a clear lie, since he gives him extreme training, forcing him to do hundreds of sets of various types of swings. Whenever he attempts to rest, D urges him to keep going and even orders him to sit on an imaginary chair. The only comfort he gets is when Till praises him for working so hard. Despite everything, he admits that he has been having fun since his reincarnation. Unlike his previous life where he rarely felt satisfaction, he vows to enjoy this life to the fullest. By the age of 6 he had become a prodigy. Every day, he went through hell with his studies and sword training. As a result, he becomes more exhausted with each passing day. And at this rate he realizes he'll never actually enjoy the new life he was given. So one day he decides to become a slacker. So he wants to play like a normal child and explore the market. Once he arrives in town, he becomes excited by all the activity around him. Till explains that it's the largest market in the city, and that it is beside the Merry Chamber of Commerce building, the huge company with branches throughout the kingdom. Suddenly their attention is drawn to a man dragging a malnourished child tied with a rope like an animal. The knights immediately prepare to intervene, but Van stops them and asks why the boy is restrained. The man replies that it's his son and that he wishes to sell him. Till explains that the poor families sometimes sell their children into slavery because they cannot afford to feed them. Before Van can say anything, a woman arrives and is happy to see him. She runs down the stairs, saying that everyone has been talking about Van, and Till shows her the family crest on his cape. The woman introduces herself as Rosalie, a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and asks what she can do for him. Van tells her that the man is selling his son and asks how much he would earn for it. Rosalie asks if the boy has any magical affinity, but the man says he only has thieving magic, so she says they won't give him more than 3 silver coins. Furious, the man starts beating him, yelling that he isn't worth much. Then he grabs him up and prepares to head to another shop. But before he can, Van says he'll buy the boy for 5 silver coins and tells Till to make the payment. The man immediately takes the money and runs away, leaving his son behind. Van cuts the ropes and helps the boy stand. The boy introduces himself as Kamson. He tells him that he's free and can go wherever he wants. Till asks whether he didn't buy him as a slave, but he explains he simply wanted to help, and then he asks if he would like to come with him. The knights warn that the Marquis would never allow a random child into the mansion, but he will allow a slave. Van asks Kamson whether he's willing to accept it, and Kamson agrees. Rosalie then finalizes the slave contract. After holding their hands, she casts a spell to print a magical seal on Kamson's hand. She explains that the mark will remain until the contract is nullified. Van thanks her for helping, but she says it's fine and invites them to follow her upstairs. Although she can't believe a noble just thanked her. He and Kamson then follow her. Later, Kamson begins working for him. One day, Kamson informs him that Dee is looking for him. He bribes Kamson with a cookie and tells him to say that he couldn't find him. Van asks why he isn't wearing his gloves. He replies that he wants to show off the mark that symbolizes their bond. But when Van says he bought them for him, he puts them on. Soon, Dee arrives and Kamson insists he couldn't find Van, but Dee points out that he literally saw Van enter the room earlier. Kamson says he must be hallucinating because he has strong feelings for Van. Unfortunately, Dee notices the cookie crumbs around his mouth and instantly realizes he was bribed. Dee asks how he could ignore the deputy commander's orders. When Kamson replies he's loyal to Van, Dee decides to train him instead. When Van turns 8, everyone eagerly waits to learn what magical abilities he possesses. They hope that he'll inherit fire affinity like his brothers and become their lord. However, all those expectations are washed away when Van has the aptitude for production magic. Jalpa is furious because production magic is the most useless type of magic in existence, since it allows him to create weapons and accessories from available materials by visualizing the result in his mind, which can easily be done without magic. So he asks how Van could ever protect the people with such an ability. He's ashamed to call Van his son and calls himself a fool for expecting so much from him after he displayed rare talents, and decides to execute Van to avoid shame. Before he can act, Mercia steps in and suggests that he make Van the lord of an undeveloped remote village in the mountains. He says it's a nameless village with around 100 residents, no major industry, and prone to monster attacks. In addition, it shares borders with Ferdinando County and its rival kingdom of Yeleneta. Jalpa is convinced and he appoints Van as the village's lord, thinking that since it's new territory, appointing one of their family members should win the citizens' loyalty. He also praises Mercia for finding a use for someone useless. After everyone leaves, Mercia apologizes to Van. He explains that he couldn't bear to see anything bad happen to him, which is why he made that rash proposal. Van thanks him, saying that if he hadn't stepped in, their father would have killed him. The next morning, Till is furious that even without magic, he's still a wise noble and that sending him to a remote village is outrageous. But he says he's looking forward to going there since he won't have to do much, and that he'll have a lot of free time. As his luggage is loaded into the carriages, he isn't allowed any chivalric order knights. Mercia hired 10 adventurers for the journey, and only Kamson will accompany him. Suddenly, Till comes running over, saying she's joining him. Then Dee also declares that he'll come too, so he can continue teaching him sword lessons. When he asks whether he is not allowed to take anyone from the chivalric order, he says he has never heard that rule, and orders knights Arb and Law to join them as well. Esparta also retires as Jalpa's butler, so he can continue educating Van. Although he never asked them to come, he's happy that he still has so many people who care about him. He reveals that none of the carriages bear the family crest because Jalpa wants to keep Van's departure a secret. However, everyone learns about his departure and even gives him a grand farewell. Arb reveals that Dee ordered them to display the banners and let everyone know about his departure, which is not at all what Van or Jalpa wanted. Dee himself is announcing it from the front, while the people want him to come back soon and take good care of himself. In the end, he decides to say goodbye to them. As the journey continues, he uses his magic for the first time and creates a small sword from a few sticks. He hopes he can find a good way to make use of his magic. Till tells him that they'll soon arrive at the village. He tells Kamsin that he's free to return to the Marquise's manor if he wants to. He even offers to release him from the contract and will ask Mercia to find him a job. However, he refuses, saying he has already dedicated his life to him and will continue serving him forever. Van thinks that he's being a little too intense. Suddenly, the caravan comes to a halt, and the knights report that the village appears to be under attack. Dee tells him that the attackers must be bandits or washed-up mercenaries. He notes that the village is surrounded by a palisade, which is ineffective against arrows, and the villagers must be scared. He counts around 50 bandits. Dee suggests attacking them together to stop them, but the adventurers' leader, Ortho, says it's too dangerous since they are outnumbered, and that his group was hired to protect Van, not risk their lives. Dee admits they may suffer a few casualties, but believes they can still force the attackers to retreat. Ortho replies that helping the villagers would be the right thing to do, yet he doesn't see a safe way to do it. Dee then tells the adventurers to guard Van while he fights the enemies himself. Esparta immediately objects, saying that if Dee dies, the village's future will be in jeopardy. When Dee asks what they should do, Esparta volunteers to fight since he is an elemental mage. He proposes distracting the enemy first, while Dee and his knights charge from the other side. He thinks the surprise attack would improve their chances of victory. Van asks whether Esparta intends to continue fighting after that, and Esparta explains he'll protect the team, but Van rejects his plan because it is too dangerous. He argues that this may be his last chance to play a hero. Even so, Van insists that the people who have contributed so much to his house are too valuable to lose, so he refuses to let Esparta, Dee or the knights risk their lives. Instead, he decides to be the decoy. Till immediately objects, but he refuses to let anyone precious to him die and declares that he'll ride the carriage and attack the bandits, leaving the rest to them. Besides, if he wants to develop the village, he cannot afford to lose valuable people, or his father will take his life. He admits that if he dies, he couldn't ask for a better way to sacrifice himself. After all, he already feels as though he has caused enough trouble for his family. Ortho recalls a conversation he had with his comrades earlier. He complained about being assigned to guard a noble's child, believing nobles look down on adventurers and commoners. Still, he accepted the job because he wants to stay here for a while. After that, Van arrives and introduces himself and even thanks them for protecting him. Van also praised him, calling him a veteran hero, and they mocked him for being so ordinary and formal. Yet they quickly realize that not all nobles are the same way. Hearing that a noble child is willing to risk his own life for commoners, he and his team agree to join the fight. Dee states he's a knight who swore his life to the Marquis. Protecting Van means protecting the future of the house. Esparta adds that he needs to teach Van the responsibilities of leadership after the battle is won. Esparta says he'll create a defensive wall and provide long-range support, after which Dee and the knights will charge from the left while Ortho's team will attack from the right. Once the wall is raised, everyone moves into position. While running, Ortho says that they may be protecting a future king. Meanwhile, the bandits seem confident that they will easily take over the village, and they're caught off guard when arrows suddenly rain down on them. The bandits are shocked to see a massive wall behind them and decide to attack whoever is behind it. Then Dee charges in and launches his assault. Dee tells his men that the enemy fell into their trap. Soon, Ortho's team attacks from the other side and surrounds the bandits. As they engage in battle, the bandits suffer heavy losses. Some of them try to run away, while one of them manages to reach the other side of the wall, where Van himself fights him. Then Kamsin lands the final blow. Van orders the adventurers to guard the wall and prevent any enemies from escaping. Before long, most of the bandits are dead, while the survivors are arrested. Remarkably, Van's army suffers no casualties at all. Ortho is even more curious about Van and decides to stay here for some time. Some adventurers already have other commitments, so they leave, whereas some curious members decide to stay. They believe he's much nicer than most nobles and want to see what he accomplishes next. However, Till scolds Van for risking his life and urges him to be more careful. Dee thinks it was a splendid victory and says that they're ready to enter the village. Inside, Van introduces himself to the village chief, Rhonda, who thanks them for saving the village. He explains that they've been attacked several times this year. Van asks if anyone knows why the village keeps being targeted, and he says that when the village was part of Ferdinando County, knights regularly patrolled the area. Van apologizes for what they've endured and admits that his father was unaware of their situation. Rhonda asks if he thinks small villages aren't worth protecting because they pay lower taxes. One villager yells at him for being rude. However, he calms them down and says they should focus on discussing the village's future. He admits that the nobles fail to fulfill their responsibilities and that the kingdom's laws contain many flaws. Although they can't change the entire system, they can work toward protecting the village. He proposes 3 solutions. Create something so valuable that the kingdom cannot ignore the village. Earn enough money to hire guards regularly, and develop the village itself. He promises that as their new lord he will develop their village, but they don't trust him. Then Esparta steps forward and introduces himself. He reveals that Van was appointed lord at only 8 years old and has been considered a prodigy since his younger days. Dee introduces himself as well and explains that they're all here to serve him. The villagers are shocked to find the head butler and deputy commander here, but they're disappointed to learn that Van possesses only production magic. One of the men asks about taxes, explaining that they already struggle to pay 30% of their harvest. So Van simply cuts it down to 10% for some time, saying that they have to focus on rebuilding the village. He says that they should start by strengthening the defenses. He asks Esparta whether his earth wall can remain permanently, but Esparta explains that it loses stability and crumbles back into dirt. So he raises the wall until they find a better solution. Then he asks what else they can do, and Dee suggests adding pitfalls and snares as well. Then Van asks for everyone's cooperation, saying that together they can make this place even stronger than ever. Later he, Till, and Kamsin go to the forest so he can practice production magic. As he concentrates, he senses his mana connecting directly with a wooden log, and he can feel every individual fiber of the wood. He imagines twisting them together, like braided thread, to increase their strength, and creates a solid wooden block. He calls it a fiber block, claiming it cannot be damaged. When Ortho passes by, he's shocked by what he's making, and Van creates a bunch of them. Ortho asks if he can test one, and when he tries, he cannot even leave a single scratch on it. Ortho is stunned as he swung it hard enough to cut through stone. He continues creating the blocks and notices that he isn't feeling tired or running out of mana. This makes him wonder how his abilities truly work. He also creates a sword and gives it to Kamsin, who vows to treasure it forever. Till is excited about what he plans to make for her, so he creates an axe. Although she looks disappointed at first, she claims that she likes it. He also feels bad and says to make her a cute accessory later. They camp for the night, and he complains that his body aches from the long journey and that he feels dirty after being unable to bathe. He also realizes that before improving the village's defenses, he should secure the residents' basic needs. His first idea is to build a proper home. The next morning, he and his friends began to gather the blocks. Rhonda remarks that the spot they chose is perfect to build a lord's mansion. He uses his magic and visualizes 4 pillars standing at the corners and focuses on making them strong. Then he creates walls, floors, windows, and a roof. And within moments, a huge and magnificent mansion stands before them. The villagers and adventurers are surprised to see that he has created it in a few seconds, giving everyone some hope. Everyone gathers around the newly built mansion. Kamsin says that Van's production magic is more useful for governing a territory than elemental magic. Though it's a great skill, Van still believes offensive magic is better for protecting people. Till and Kamsin immediately disagree, saying they already feel safe in his presence. Esparta explains that offensive magic may be useful during war, but what people really need is a leader capable of improving their lives, and in that sense no one is better than him. Dee agrees with Esparta, while Ortho points out that Van's powers exceed those of regular production magic users. Van happily says that if they bring him lumber, he can build houses for everyone. The crowd is shocked for a moment, and Dee orders Arb and Law to gather wood, while Ortho tells the same to his party. Rhonda asks whether he can build houses for the villagers. All the villagers start complaining about the bad condition of their houses. Van realizes he'll probably wear himself out with all the work, but he notices their homes are in really bad shape and agrees to make new ones for them as well, which makes them happy in no time. He starts replacing the old rotting homes with improved wooden houses for everyone. The villagers are impressed by how organized the neighborhood looks. Van explains that he is using a grid layout where 4 home blocks serve as the fundamental unit and large streets run between them. He also plans to modify them according to each family's requirements once he learns to replace wood with stone. The villagers express their gratitude by gifting him part of their harvest. He also constructs a public bathhouse beside the manor. Although he built it for himself, he's glad they like it too. The structure itself is simple, with Pluriel filling the baths using her water magic while Kamsen heats the water with charcoal fires. When Till and Pluriel invite him to bathe with them, he feels embarrassed and says that he's a full-grown man, so the girls go ahead without him. Inside the bath, Pluriel can't believe Van allows commoners to enjoy this luxury. Till says that's just the kind of man he is, and Pluriel says he's full of surprises and calls him an incredibly kind child, which Till agrees with. Later, Van and Kamsen take a bath together. Van notices that Kamsen has built up some muscle, but he says he's still nowhere near Dee's level, and Van points out that compared to Dee, everyone is weak. This only motivates Kamsen, and he declares that he'll continue training until he's strong enough to protect Van. Suddenly, Dee, Arb and Law join them in the bath. Van thinks he should leave, but Dee insists they all stay to deepen their friendship together. Afterward, he feels good, and he can now sleep in a comfortable bed. The next day, everyone worked together to dig a trench along the village border. Van says it is good for defense while also providing drinking water and being used in the bathhouse. Then they use magic to divert the water from a nearby river. Esparta digs out a trench. Dee, Kamsen, and the others continue the work by hand while he strengthens its floor and sides. Till says that this is a construction project and that it's essential because people cannot live without it, and he's glad to see everyone working so hard. Moreover, he adds that improving the living conditions will make it easier to attract merchants. After all, creating a comfortable life in the future is his primary goal, though it'll take them a week. He notes that they have to work patiently. By evening, he tells them to stop for the day, though Dee thinks that they can reach the village if they work for a few more hours. He is amazed by his speed, but he points out that Kamsen and the others are exhausted. Dee says he was really enjoying it but realizes they shouldn't overdo it, and Van is surprised that he still has the stamina to keep going. The next day, thanks to all their contributions, they are done with the canal, and when Esparta breaks the stone block, the river water immediately rushes through the channel. The villagers are happy as they watch their new water source, and it soon fills the trenches surrounding the borders, though he thinks it might flood during the rainy season. So to solve that, he proposes creating a lake behind the village. Esparta also thinks it's a good idea because a lake will also be useful during droughts. So they successfully built the lake as well, and the village now has a new reservoir. Now they also no longer need to trek to the river to fetch water. He believes that this will make life easier for the whole village. One night, a carriage carrying a noble girl named Arte and a woman, Panamera, passes through the forest. The two playfully compliment each other, and it is revealed they're heading toward the remote village. Meanwhile, Van turns the temporary earth wall into a stronger concrete rampart. The adventurers say it strengthens the village's defenses, but Van doesn't think it is safe, so he creates many ballistae along the wall. He attaches large protective shields to the front to protect the user from enemy attacks. He states that even though the village is small, it's starting to look like a fortress city. Dee says no group of bandits could ever conquer it now and thinks that if Jalpa knew about his son's incredible power, he wouldn't have sent him here. He argues with Esparta about it, who says that his powers are best suited for protection, but Dee thinks he's more powerful than any other sorcerer. Van tells them to calm down since arguments won't do them any good, and they all have to do whatever they can. Dee laughs and agrees, adding that he's certain Van will make a great comeback. As they enjoy lunch, Till mentions they didn't have much ingredients left. Esparta says that they must do something about the village's regular income, and only a handful of merchants visit them once a month. Van says he can handle any home and furniture needs, and the villagers' crops must provide plenty of food for them. Then he adds that they don't have any ingredients left for his favorite desserts, which makes Van furious, and he tells them to gather some products that this village can sell. Kamsen thinks they can sell the wooden blocks he makes, but he rejects the idea because only he can produce them. Till suggests hunting monsters, but he rejects it before she can finish explaining. And Esparta thinks choosing something distinct from this village will be difficult. Later, Van asks Kamsin and Till to try on their weapons so they can protect themselves, but they are hesitant. Kusala shows them a shield made from an orc's back as a target. Kamsin tries first, but his swing is too weak, and Kusala makes fun of him. Before he can say anything, the shield cuts in half. He starts crying because he just had this made. They're surprised that a wooden weapon could cut so well. Van repairs the shield using his magic. Ortho stops by after hearing them and asks Van if he wants to buy some ores they found at the foot of the Wolfsbrook mountain range, which is filled with monsters. Yet they managed to mine iron, copper, silver, gold, and even found a mithril ore. Van is shocked and asks why nobody discovered them earlier. Ortho guesses that the location is too remote and hard to reach, and the only survey came from the chivalric order's initial evaluation. Van says that if they found these at the foot, the whole mountain range must be full of resources. He immediately uses the iron ore to make an iron block, but he doesn't know how pure it is. Kusala eagerly asks if he can create a sword for him, and he's ready since he already feels bad about the shield. Van then begins creating his first iron weapon, so he visualizes the blade's thicker edges, sharpness, and density, and he manages to finish the sword. Kusala immediately celebrates his new weapon. Then he tries to create a longer sword, which also turns out well. Ortho and the others also ask him to make swords for them. Puriel points out that they can easily sell the weapons at a high price, and Van tells them to bring more so he can create multiple weapons. Then Esparta arrives to examine the mithril ore, and he believes there must be an undiscovered dungeon nearby since finding metallic ores in forests rather than mountains is extremely unusual. He explains that a new dungeon would completely transform the village's future. He adds that they're a great source of gems and that the guild will immediately open a branch in the village. Van likes the idea of a new dungeon, as the importance of this village will change, but he knows that the village doesn't have the resources to welcome the guild right now. Esparta says if the news spreads, adventurers, merchants, and even the chivalric order could flood the area, but the village lacks the facilities, food, and infrastructure to support them. Also, there is a risk of neighboring nations attacking them. Puriel asks whether the kingdom would immediately send knights if a dungeon were discovered. Van explains the problem is that he's a black sheep of House Fertio, and if they learn that the land he is on is valuable, they would simply send him somewhere else. So Ortho suggests they should avoid the area where the dungeon could be while gathering resources, and Van thanks them for keeping it a secret. Later, while walking through the village with Till, he points out that most of the housing renovations are over. Till wonders whether he has run out of mana, and he replies he's getting tired, though he will give up when he gets worn out. Suddenly, a man comes running and says that a group of armored lizards is approaching from the main road. Van immediately orders the drawbridge raised and the gates closed. The villagers begin panicking, but he tells them to trust him and promises to protect them and asks for their support since he cannot fight the monsters alone. The villagers quickly agree to fight the approaching monsters, and he orders everyone to take positions on the ramparts. Kamsin reports that Ortho's party went hunting earlier and won't return anytime soon. He wants to join the fight, but Till stops him with tears in her eyes, so he sends D to the top to assess the situation. He immediately climbs up and reports that there are about 40 armored lizards, and they are hard to take down. He adds that even a group of veteran knights would struggle to bring down a single one. Van then orders D to load the iron bolts into the ballistae. The knights know regular weapons won't be effective against them, so they need to trust Van's creations and begin loading the weapons. When the villagers fire the first round, they're shocked to see the bolts pierce the armored lizards with ease, and they quickly shoot down 10 lizards. Unfortunately, they only have enough iron bolts left for a final round. D tells everyone to reload since the remaining monsters are approaching quickly. They took down many lizards, but they're out of iron bolts and there are still many lizards coming, so Van orders them to use the wooden bolts. The knights doubt that wood can be effective against the lizard's armor, yet D chooses to trust Van once again and orders the loading of the wooden bolts. To everyone's surprise, the wooden bolts also penetrate the lizards' bodies, so D orders them to continue firing, and finally they kill all of the armored lizards and celebrate their victory. The knights report that no one on their side was injured and that they used only a small number of bolts. D proudly says that Van is truly extraordinary. After the battle, the villagers harvest all the armored lizards for meat and other materials. Van praises everyone for their efforts, and after seeing the large amount of meat, he declares they are holding a big feast tonight. They cheer for the great victory they achieved today, and everyone is enjoying the feast. Rhonda says he never thought his people would be this happy or enjoy a good meal again. The villagers find it interesting that a noble is celebrating alongside them, a behavior which Esparta finds problematic. The adventurers also enjoy the lizard meat, and Dee is upset after hearing that Van has been crafting swords. Ortho states that his new sword cuts through the monster's bones without resistance. Puriel praises its lightweight, thin profile, and sharp edges. Kusala adds that it looks beautiful, too. Dee tells Van they're ready to pay him if he makes swords for the two knights. He says he can't accept money from them and promises to create new weapons once he gets enough materials. He also learns how much the lizard meat and materials are worth. He thinks that the village will be so rich, but Esparta says that when a village makes more than 100 gold coins, 50% must be paid to the Marquis as taxes. Van wants to keep it a secret because if his father learns how valuable this place is, he'll take over and exile Van elsewhere. Esparta suggests selling the goods to Mercia instead, who will cover for them and would also benefit from defeating the monsters. The next day, two traveling merchants arrive at the village. They're stunned by whether this is the remote village. Van himself greets them at the main gate, which surprises them even more when they realize he's the famous prodigy they've heard so much about. They introduce themselves as Bell and Rango from the Merry Chamber of Commerce. Van welcomes them inside and leads them to the warehouse where they are storing the lizard's materials. They agree to do business immediately, though they say it will take a month to transport everything. He also tells them about the good quality weapons they have, and they're willing to buy them too. When he also asks them to promote these weapons, they hesitate, and he realizes they wanted to do so, but he's smarter than they are, so he proposes that they set up a permanent shop in the village. The idea excites both of them, and he immediately builds a store for them. Meanwhile, Panamera and Arte finally arrive at the village entrance. Back at the mansion, Van and Esparta discuss future development plans. Esparta suggests building a fortress town capable of housing 10,000 residents, and he notes square-shaped towns are the most common design. But Van proposes a star-shaped town instead, explaining that invaders would be forced to spend extra time conquering each point. Esparta finds it interesting. Just then, Arb arrives and reports that an emissary from Ferdinando County is here, who turns out to be Panamera and Arte. Panamera introduces herself, explaining that she was recently promoted from a knight to viscountess, while Arte is the youngest daughter of Count Ferdinando and states that she's here on her father's behalf. He is fortunate to meet them and asks them to have a seat. Panamera says Van is slightly younger than Arte, but he's very composed, so she asks why he thinks they're here. He guesses they're here to assess their enemy and whether they can win him over. She laughs and says he's correct. She explains that Count Ferdinando is wary of him since he has been entrusted with the land between his county and the kingdom of Yeleneta. She says that if the Marquis has sent his famous child prodigy here, this means he can't use magic. Van says that she's correct, that he has no aptitude for elemental magic, and was exiled because of it. He adds that the Count has no reason to be concerned, but she points out that he has transformed the village into a fortress in no time, replaced the old buildings with new ones, and she estimates that 5,000 men were dispatched with him to make it all happen. Van bursts into laughter, and they are confused by his reaction. Panamera asks what's so funny. He explains that his father allowed him to bring his luggage and Kamson. She then asks why he has a butler, a knight, and a maid with him. Esparta says that he retired voluntarily, so he can follow Van here and continue teaching him. Dee says that after seeing Van's talent and generosity, he came here on his own. He also mentions that he's been ignoring orders from the chivalric order to return, and Van tells him he'll be kicked out if he keeps doing that. While Till says she followed because Van treats everyone equally, regardless of status, and she wants to serve him forever. When Panamera asks how the village transformed, he takes them out to an open field and says he's going to make a rampart. Esparta raises a stone wall using earth magic, but she says that this wall will crumble as it loses its mana. Then Van steps ahead and uses his magic to convert it into a concrete wall, then create a giant door from the blocks. While Panamera watches in shock, Arte asks Van about his magical aptitude. He says he possesses production magic, which society calls the most unfortunate type. He reveals that when his father learned about his ability, he banished him here. Panamera admits she's not fully convinced, but she understands it and reveals that she was instructed to offer Arte's hand in marriage. After learning the real reason, he says he will continue to develop this village and has no desire to seek conflict with anyone, and rejects the offer. Panamera admits she was already against this idea, and she came here with the intent to prevent it. But after knowing everything, her feelings have changed, and she now believes Arte would be fortunate to marry her. He's confused, but she explains that he possesses greater foresight, can unite people, has knowledge and willpower, and is a great mage. He's happy that she's praising him. She then asks Arte what she feels. Arte blushes and says Van is a good person, but she doesn't know enough to consider marriage yet. And he is not ready to marry either, as it's not the perfect time. Panamera says they'll be staying for the night, so they can spend more time together, which freaks him out. She even suggests that Arte stay in Van's mansion for the night, but Arte refuses to sleep in the same room as him, so he creates an inn for them, leaving them shocked that he built it so fast. The three of them have dinner together, and he hopes they like the lizard dish. Arte says it's delicious. When he asks about her hobbies, she explains that she likes cute things like dolls and flowers. He says that he hasn't seen any dolls around here and wants to see them. She gets enchanted that he's really curious. Till and Kamsen ask if they can also see them, and she agrees to show them the next day. Later, Arte thanks him for everything and admits she's nervous about getting engaged, but she knows he's a kind man and she's happy that they met, and she quickly runs away, wishing good night. Back at the mansion, Esparta notes that if Count sent his daughter here, it likely means she doesn't have any elemental magic. He can relate to what she must be feeling. He says that she also can't return home. She can stay in the village. Elsewhere, Panamera says she was planning to go back the next day, but now she'll stay longer to help her. Later, she admits that she's looking forward to meeting Van the next day. The next morning, Till and Kamsen wake Van and tell him that an urgent situation has arisen at the lake. On the way there, he learns that the villagers have named the lake in his honor because of everything he has done to improve their lives. When they arrive, they find a crowd gathered there, and he spots a mysterious girl in the water. Esparta explains that she's an Apkallu, a rare race of half-human and half-fish being that few people ever encounter. He tries to communicate with her, but she doesn't respond, so he asks Till and Kamsen to bring some meat. When he offers it to her, she approaches the shore and asks whether it is for her. Van confirms that it is, and she takes a bite. He explains that it came from an armored lizard. When she asks who defeated the lizards, everyone points to Van, but he says that it was a team effort. Then she dives back underwater, leaving everyone wondering if she'll return. The next day, several Apkallu appear in the lake. Among them is the same girl from before. Van wonders whether the Apkallu regard armored lizards as gods or something, but Esparta admits he has no information about it. Then one of the Apkallu men says he wishes to speak with Van. He thanks him for being kind to his daughter and says he heard Van defeated the armored lizards. When he confirms it, the entire group is shocked. The man then shocks everyone by announcing that Van has permission to marry his daughter, Lada Priora. He introduces himself as Lada Vesta and explains that Priora is his only daughter. He proudly adds that she will become a beautiful girl when she grows older. Van points out that Priora is still a child and asks why he is discussing marriage already. Vesta explains that the armored lizards have recently invaded their rivers, causing heavy losses among the Apkallu, which is why he wants a powerful husband who can protect Priora. Van replies that marriage isn't necessary for that, and he believes Priora should be free to marry whomever she chooses in the future. He also promises to protect their tribe regardless of any marriage arrangement. Hearing this, Vesta agrees to settle near the village, and Van immediately creates two large resting areas in the middle of the lake for them. The structures are spacious and comfortable. Soon, all the Apkallu move in and seem delighted with their new home. Then Esparta reminds him that they still need to work on the sewage system. Vesta overhears them and asks if there's anything he can help with, so Van explains that he has placed large pipes beneath the village and plans to use water from the moat to flush away waste. Since they are skilled in water, Vesta volunteers to help regulate the flow several times a day. He says it's the least they can do in return for letting them live here. Van thanks them for that. Soon Panamera and Arte arrive and are amazed to see the Apkallis. Unfortunately, a misunderstanding arises when Priora calls herself Van's wife and insists that she still intends to marry him. Later, Van and Arte go boating on the lake together. He comments on the pleasant weather and hopes she's enjoying the fresh morning air. She agrees that it's refreshing. She also apologizes for misunderstanding the situation with the Apkallu and admits she jumped to conclusions. In addition, she praises him for developing the village and calls him incredible. Just then, Priora suddenly appears and greets her husband. She asks who Arte is. Arte politely introduces herself, while Van explains that they're having a private conversation, but Priora's friends join them and greet him. They unsettle their boat in the process, which causes Arte to fall against Van's chest, and the children burst into laughter. Van clearly says he's not Priora's husband, and that he has already discussed this with her father, but she gets upset and leaves. The other children call him a bully and begin rocking the boat, scaring both of them. Later, Vesta angrily confronts Van and accuses him of cheating on her with another woman. So to settle the matter, he proposes a competition to see who will become Van's future wife. Van is disappointed by the situation. Dee immediately accepts the challenge and everyone else agrees to help him resolve things. Vesta announces that the contest will consist of 3 rounds and lets Van choose the first event. After thinking for a moment, he suggests pool volleyball, but Esparta admits he has never heard of such a sport before. Van even creates swimsuits for everyone. Panamera decides to join their side, since she wants Van and Arte to marry. As the match begins, Apkallis' team starts overpowering the humans, but Panamera doesn't give up and encourages a crying Till to try harder. The two develop a strategy where Till sets the ball so Panamera can score, which appears to be working, but after a tough match the Apkallu team still wins. For the second event, Vesta chooses a 2-person relay race across the lake. Van notes that Apkallis are excellent swimmers, and he will have to marry Priora. But Dee is confident that he can win and partners with Kamsin. The race begins with Priora taking an early lead, though Kamsin manages to keep up. She dives underwater to swim even faster. When Kamsin reaches the checkpoint, Dee takes over and uses the butterfly stroke. Van wonders why he chose it, and Arbin Law explain that it's his fastest swimming technique, which turns out to be true as he surges ahead and wins the race. The humans cheer for him. Vesta cannot believe his team lost a swimming competition. Still, 1 round is left, and he asks Van to choose. For the last event, he creates an ice shaver and asks Pluriel to create ice using her magic. Then he prepares 4 bowls of shaved ice and reveals that whoever eats it quickly wins the round. He competes in this round, and Arte decides to be his teammate. Panamera asks her if she wants to switch places at the last second, but she says she'll be fine. As the contest begins, Arte, Van, Vesta, and Priora start eating the shaved ice. Then all 4 of them suffer brain freeze. Even so, nobody is willing to surrender. Van thinks about giving up, but seeing that Arte hasn't given up, he starts eating faster than before, and soon they win the final round. The humans celebrate their victory, but Vesta refuses to call off the engagement, since he still thinks he is worthy of her daughter, and they return underwater. Van's stomach hurts from eating the shaved ice, though the others praise him and Arte for a good job. Arte reveals that her father was always too busy to spend time with her, while her mother handed her off to a nurse and showed no interest in her life. The reason was simple: she's a failure, and her magical aptitude is marionette magic, which allows her to play with her dolls. But her mother didn't like it. She learned that her magic is considered evil and hated among the nobility, and no one would even talk to her. When she turned 10, her father informed her that she would get engaged to someone, which only increased her anxiety. However, meeting Van changed her. Seeing someone else without elemental magic, yet he is confident in his own talents, so she decides to begin practicing her magic seriously. Back in the village, Van announces plans to construct more ramparts in preparation for future development. He reminds everyone to work safely and avoid injuries. To motivate them, he promises a large barbecue that night. After that, Arte arrives and greets him. He returns the greeting, and she comments that the weather is beautiful today. He notices that she seems more energetic than before, and wonders what changed. She nervously asks if they can spend some time together, and he happily agrees. Meanwhile, in the forest, Ortho and his party are running from something. Thanks to everyone's help, the construction of the star-shaped village ramparts is completed in just 2 weeks. Panamera is impressed by the speed and what he can do. He explains that they'll build more houses when more people, merchants and adventurers move here. She is jealous of him because she always dreamed of owning her own land and says that she'll just earn more glory in the next battle. She's really interested in the ballista he made. He explains that this improved model can fire bolts from both the top and bottom separately. He asks Kamsin to demonstrate, and when he fires a bolt, it travels faster to the forest, causing a giant explosion. Panamera is astonished by the weapon's power and immediately asks to buy one, but he refuses, saying they aren't for sale. However, she offers him a favor in exchange for one, which he agrees to, saying he'll call in that favor later. She notes that transporting the weapon will be difficult due to its size, and assures him she can arrange it herself and can also manufacture the iron bolts independently. Kamsin quickly suggests she should take several of Van's bolts instead. When she asks why, he shows her one of Van's swords and asks if she has a spare, which she can lose, though she confidently mentions that he won't be able to break it. He swings it once. At first she thinks it barely had an impact, but then her sword splits in half and she stares at it in disbelief and asks about its material. Van explains that he made it from ordinary iron and adds that the bolts are made from the same material and are powerful enough to pierce armored lizards. As a result, she also requests some bolts, and he agrees. She also thanks Kamsin for demonstrating these weapons. Suddenly, they spot Ortho and his party running towards them with a giant dragon chasing after them. Ortho says that they'll distract it to buy everyone time to retreat, but he plans to fight the monster, and Panamera offers to aid him, so he plans to shoot it down with the ballistae. Panamera tells Arte to go inside and orders everyone to take positions on the ramparts. He apologizes to Arte for exposing her to danger, but he's certain that his enhanced ballistae should at least be capable of injuring it and forcing it back into the forest. He then tells Till to escort her back while telling Dee and the knights about the situation. As the dragon rapidly approaches, Van realizes they can't let it reach the village and orders the men to ready the ballistae and aim for its wings. When one of their members stumbles to the ground, the others try to draw the dragon's attention. Kusala is successful by throwing his knife at it. He plans to lead it away, yet Ortho orders him to run toward the ramparts. Instead, Van then commands the men to attack the dragon while being careful not to hit Kusala. Unfortunately, the dragon dodges the bolts easily, so Panamera says it's her turn to strike. He realizes that her promotion to Viscountess at such a young age must mean she's a top-class elemental mage, and it is revealed that she possesses a fire affinity. She attacks the dragon with a powerful blast and takes it down, causing a massive explosion. Van calls it incredible, but the dragon survives, and it rises from the flames even angrier than before. Van orders all ballistae to fire. It tries to get away, but several bolts pierce its wings. He commands a second volley, but the dragon easily avoids them and continues toward the village. Meanwhile, Ortho and his party make it through the gate. Van is relieved to see them alive, though he knows everyone remaining outside is in danger. Panamera continues attacking the dragon with fire magic, yet even she cannot finish it off. Van orders everyone to retreat, and Panamera rushes ahead to set it up early, giving them time to enter the village. Although the dragon's wings get burned by the fire, it destroys the newly built rampart. Then Esparta steps forward despite Van's objections. Esparta wants to hold it until everyone reaches safety and then retreat afterward. Using earth magic, he temporarily traps it. Van is in despair at how casually he's treating the situation and yells at him to run faster. But he says running is not good for his old bones and insists he's trying his best. So Kamsin decides to stay with him, telling Van to go ahead. As they run toward the village, he realizes they need more time or the dragon will catch up. Just then, Panamera informs him that everything is ready here. Van asks if he can call in the favor now. She doesn't mind and asks what he wants. He tells her to strike the dragon when it comes near the village, after which they'll pin it down with lots of bolts, and she calls it a good plan. When the dragon breaks free and charges forward, Van orders the men to prepare the ballistae. Then Dee, Arb, and Law rush out to fight the dragon directly. Dee says they now possess Van's weapons and should be able to hold their own. They strike it hard, but it fights back and sends them away. As it moves in to finish them off, Esparta raises a barrier in its way using his earth magic, which allows them time to retreat. Then he signals Panamera to attack using her fire magic, and as it burns he orders all ballistae to be fired, which hits the dragon and heavily injures it. When the dragon opens its eyes, Dee kills it by slicing off its head. Van declares the victory, and everyone celebrates. Dee and Arte arrive to check on him, and he says he's fine. Panamera congratulates him and calls him a great leader. He gives the credit to Esparta and Dee and says he's proud to call them his friends, but she insists that he was the one who gave the commands and made the weapons that took down the dragon, though he believes he still needs to upgrade the ballistae so they can at least fire 10 successive bolts. She calls Dee a dragon slayer and suggests holding a dragon slaying ceremony. Later, all the villagers gather to hear the announcement. Van informs everyone that the dragon is defeated before allowing Panamera to speak. She explains that the village may have been destroyed if not for the efforts of key individuals like Dee, who beheaded the dragon with a single strike. The second important man is Esparta for using earth magic to pin down the dragon. And finally, she declares that none of it would have happened without Van's knowledge, commands, and weapons. Everyone cheers for him. She also notes that thanks to his defensive planning, they achieved victory with minimal damage and no casualties. Then we learn Panamera's backstory. She was born into a family of royal knights. After discovering her fire aptitude, she was sent away to the county for training. She worked hard and soon became a commander at 16 years old, fought in several battles, and earned glory. In just 6 years she was promoted to Viscountess. One day, Count Ferdinando summoned her and explained that his youngest daughter was being sent to marry the lord of a remote village. Since she would be dealing with a child, he told her no formalities would be required. after which she got familiar with Arte and told her that if the boy turned out to be incompetent, she would reject him on her behalf. Arte asked why she was unwanted at her own home, but she assured her that's not the case, and said that all of her siblings were already engaged, making it her turn. Panamera was able to relate to her anxiety since she felt the same when her family sent her away, but all her fears disappeared after meeting Van, which made Arte feel comfortable and welcome. Returning to the present, she announces that she'll be forming an equal alliance with Van and declares that if they ally with her, she will provide the support that the Marquis never gave them. He also thinks that an alliance would benefit both sides financially and politically. Since his father cut him off, it would be a good opportunity, so he accepts her offer. Van is glad they managed to defeat the dragon without any losses, and now Esparta wants him to focus on developing the city capable of housing 10,000 people. For that, they need a more attractive city and new citizens. Suddenly, Till and Kamsin report that Bel and Rango have returned, along with merchants from the Merry Chamber of Commerce to buy dragon materials. He excitedly gets ready to sell the dragon materials to earn a profit. When he takes them to the warehouse, he gets curious about the dragon's worth. Bel and Rango explain that since the dragon is in good condition, it would cost at least 100 platinum coins. Van calculates the amount in Japanese currency and is shocked to realize it's worth 10 billion yen. The other two merchants explain that the Merry Chamber of Commerce is willing to purchase everything. They say they are the kingdom's most reputable traders and offer him 60 platinum coins. Van decides to consult Bel and Rango first. However, the old merchants say those brothers are inexperienced, but he ignores them. So they openly tell Bel and Rango to support their plan. Van silently observes them and realizes they're trying to manipulate the negotiation. Fortunately, Bel and Rango refuse to lie. They insist that they want to build their careers with integrity, regardless of who the customer is. The shady merchants threaten to have them expelled from the company and leave. When Van asks them if they are sure to go against them, they say they're doing the right thing. So he suggests that they start their own trading company, but they say it's not as simple as he thinks. Bel says that 3 conditions must be met. First, pay the registration fee to the Merchants Guild. Second, own a physical shop. And third, get endorsement from a titled noble. Van says the first 2 are easy, but the third is the real issue. Van asks Panamera for help, and surprisingly, she agrees. When he asks if she's serious, he points out that the royal family might harass her. She explains that supporting a small trading company is important for nobles, and if they don't, it would reflect badly on them. She adds that if she wants to climb the ladder quickly, she needs to do things to gain attention, and helping the merchant will benefit her as well. He suggests that she should take credit for slaying the dragon, but she says that defeating dragons is very rare, and no one would believe her. Instead, she says that he gets a noble title himself. She explains the noble hierarchy, and since he's the Marquis's son, he would start with the rank of Baron. Van worries that it'll attract too much attention, but she says that he should take advantage of his achievements. She jokingly adds that he can always point his ballistae at anyone who opposes him. Then he points out that if he takes credit for the dragon, she might lose an opportunity for promotion. She tells him not to worry about him and to focus on building a successful life. Then she closes the door. Later, he meets Bel and Rango again to inform them that they can officially establish their own company because Panamera is ready to support them. The brothers are thrilled. When Bel asks if he'll sell the dragon materials to them, he happily agrees. They offer him 130 platinum coins for everything he has done for them. Unfortunately, they soon discover that the old merchants have left with all the carriages. Panamera says that they took them to discourage Bel and Rango, but Van says he can simply build new carriages for them. Meanwhile, the old travelers laugh, calling the brothers foolish and assuming they will come to them after realizing their mistake. Suddenly, Panamera, Bel, and Rango pass by them on a new and faster carriage, leaving them shocked that the brothers managed to convince her to start a trading company. Soon, Panamera reaches the kingdom of Scuderia to meet King Dino. He wonders why she's seeking a title for a man who didn't even accompany her, but she explains that he's currently fulfilling his duties as a lord. He asks what achievements this remote village lord has accomplished. She replies that he slew a forest dragon. Dino asks if he has elemental magic, and she replies that his aptitude is production magic, which surprises him. She then reveals that he's Marquis Fertio's 8-year-old son, Van Ne Fertio, and explains everything to him, how he fought the bandits with a few subordinates and adventurers. After that, he used his production magic to surround the village with walls, a moat, houses, and powerful defenses. Then she tells him that when the dragon attacked, she pinned it down, while Van and his companions used their abilities to defeat it without suffering a single casualty. Dino finds it hard to believe, so she shows him one of the dragon's fangs as proof. She also invites him to visit the village to see how much it has changed under Van's leadership. Impressed, Dino decides he wants to meet him as soon as possible. After that, she tells people that Van Nefertito slew a dragon, and the crowd begins discussing the prodigy. Back in the village, he continues following his development plans and constructs 2 tall towers. Esparta explains that towers will allow them to spot enemies from afar and strengthen their defenses. Later, he enjoys lunch with his friends at the top of one of them. He likes the delicious homemade egg sandwiches and comments on how wonderful the view is from there. Esparta suggests that since they have new buildings and facilities, they should officially call it a town. However, Van opposes the idea, but the others think Van Town sounds good. Then Arte asks if he can stop calling her Lady Arte formally. He agrees and simply calls her Arte, which makes her blush. Till then serves them a cake she made with ingredients she got from Belle and Rango's shop. They all enjoy the delicious cake. Suddenly, Kamsin notices people gathering at the main gate, and when Van meets them, he learns the village's true name is Sito. An old man explains that they're from the neighboring village, where they are struggling to survive. He also reveals that many of their young ones were taken by the Count to strengthen his forces. After listening to them, he asks if they would relocate here. He promises food and new homes for everyone, and they also don't need to pay taxes for a while. The old man informs that the village has 300 people, though only 10 of them traveled here. He immediately offers to send adventurers and carriages to help carry their belongings, but the man says that won't be necessary because they own cows. Van considers using them to produce milk and other dairy products, which could be the village's new industry. Later, Ortho's party escorts the villagers to Cetos. Ortho and Kusala discuss how generous Van is, but Puriel yells at them to stop chit-chatting and return to their posts. Ortho talks to a woman who is upset about leaving their original home, but he says that the new village is like a paradise. When they finally arrive, Van himself greets them. He tells them they can eat the barbecued meat. Van reveals that it was hard to build houses and food for 300 people, but says it was worth it. After dinner, the new villagers ask for work so they can earn a living since none of them has money. He tells them they can help run the inn, open new shops, and work in the fields. Then Rhonda arrives and explains that ever since Van came to Sito, life has improved, and he promises they're going to help them settle in their new homes. Then they serve the cakes made with the cream from their cows. Esparta adds that although the village's population has grown, there is still a long way to go, and Van vows to continue working hard. Soon, the new residents settle into their new lives. Just when Van thinks he's done for the day, Esparta declares that it is the perfect time to resume his studies, but he thinks it is still too soon. At that moment, Ortho's group returns from hunting and reports that they've discovered the entrance to the dungeon, and Esparta says they should immediately report it to the royal capital. He explains that once news spreads, adventurers will come to the village, and his father will also learn about the village's development. Ortho apologizes for discovering the dungeon, but he says there's no point worrying about it now, and he assigns Kusala the task of delivering the message to the royal capital. As a reward for discovering the dungeon, Van gives them 1 gold coin. Then he gives him a mithril knife, leaving him overjoyed while Ortho and Puriel stare in disbelief. Everyone wishes Kusala a safe journey as he departs. Along the road, he comes across a carriage being attacked by 3 orcs. He immediately rushes in to help. He quickly reacts and thanks to his new knife kills all the orcs easily. He feels good about getting a mithril weapon. A girl then steps out of the carriage and thanks him for saving her life. She introduces herself as Flamiria and asks for the name of the brave man who saved her, and Kusala nervously says he's just an ordinary, humble adventurer. She explains that she's going to the royal capital and promises to repay him later. Since he's also headed there, he offers to accompany her and even helps her sit onto his horse, joking that it would happily carry her instead of him. When he asks why she's traveling alone, she explains that her father was a baron who died in battle, and his lands were conquered, so she is going to the capital to work as a maid. He suggests that she come to the remote village instead, and assures her that she won't regret it. She thanks him for everything. Back at the village, Van begins thinking about building an outpost for adventurers, and Esparta suggests appointing a governor to oversee it since he will remain focused on the village. He immediately appoints Esparta to the position, and also wants Dee's group to form the Sito Chivalric Order. He also jokes about naming the outpost after Esparta, who asks if it's payback. Next, with the help of some villagers, he starts construction of the new outpost and believes it should be completed within a month. Seeing the group's excitement, he decides he wants them to join his chivalric order and asks Dee to recruit candidates. Unfortunately, Van is shocked to learn that many of them have already signed contracts to join the Esparta chivalric order instead. He falls into despair after realizing Esparta had already secured men before he could. Soon afterward, Kamsin reports Kusala has returned from the capital with a girl he met on the way. Flamiria introduces herself and mentions how Kusala rescued her from a group of orcs. He insists that the credit goes to Van's mithril knife, though she says it was Kusala who fought bravely like a hero. Just then, Van notices a group of rough-looking individuals approaching them. He declares that the apocalypse has arrived, but Kusala reassures him that they're simply adventurers who came here for the dungeon. Even so, Van can't help thinking they look like villains from a post-apocalyptic movie, which disappoints them. They ask why everyone is standing around outside where monsters could attack them, but Van says that they're close enough to the village to be perfectly safe. When the adventurers finally see a village with huge ramparts and can't believe it, then he casually uses his magic to create a temporary fence, leaving them completely stunned. At that moment, Dee arrives with more wood. One of the adventurers refers to Van as the brat everyone has been talking about. Dee gets angry at the insult to his lord and threatens to kill them if they don't apologize. When one of them charges forward, Dee simply slices the man's weapon in half with a single swing. They all immediately apologize and become terrified of him. Before long, they're eagerly gathering around Van to listen to his stories instead. Later, Ortho's party returns from exploring the dungeon and meets Kusala and Flamiria. Everyone is completely shocked that Kusala has returned with a girl. Van asks how the dungeon exploration went. Puriel reports that they hardly found any monsters, but the entrance is located in a dangerous spot. She explains that the surrounding area is harsh, and that they have already established a temporary tent base. She suggests that he build something there, and he calls it a classic Pluriel move. He argues that he can't abandon the village and travel to dangerous locations whenever he wants. But she counters that the area isn't nearly as dangerous as he imagines, and that they've already explored it a few times. Then he decides to make several unreasonable demands in hopes of scaring her. He requests maps, many escorts, supplies, his friends, and even Arte's company. Surprisingly, she accepts all the requests without hesitation and immediately leaves to make preparations, which leaves him speechless. The next day, Van finds himself riding in a carriage with everything he asked for, but Kamsin gets sick during the trip. Along the way, they encounter a giant troll and the new adventurers easily kill it. As they continue through the mountains, the girls are blown away by the breathtaking scenery and even spot a flying monster in the distance. Ortho announces that they're almost there, so he decides to look out and freaks out and tells them to stop. The adventurers have been crossing a deep crevice using nothing more than 2 giant logs laid across the gap. Van immediately lectures them on safety. He points out that the logs could roll, break, or collapse at any moment, sending people plunging to their deaths. But the adventurers laugh and say that they play with danger every day. Then, using his magic to construct a proper bridge that allows everyone to cross it safely. They finally reach the dungeon entrance, and he notices that there's not much space nearby, and wonders what kind of facilities he should build. First, he creates a gate to seal the entrance to keep the monsters inside. Then he builds a large hotel for the adventurers, complete with a rest area, storage rooms, a huge cafeteria, bedrooms, and a terrace overlooking the surrounding scenery. He also installs water tanks and rain collectors for the water supply. He then appoints Ortho in charge of the base. Ortho happily accepts the position, while the adventurers enjoy their new headquarters as evening approaches. He suggests returning before it gets dark, but they make fun of him for being afraid of the dark. Suddenly, Arte discovers mithril ore in the corner, and he praises her for having a good eye while the adventurers celebrate it. When they finally return to the village, they find Esparta already waiting for them, which instantly makes Van afraid. He tells Van that they need to talk to him in private. Thinking he's about to be scolded, Van asks everyone for help, but they all refuse. Then he forces Ortho to help because he helped the adventurers earlier. Ortho takes the blame on himself, but Esparta stops him and then drags Van away while he apologizes. The next day, Van and Arte take a walk through the village. He asks whether she would like to stay here permanently, but seeing her hesitation, he clarifies that he wants to know what she truly wants. Regardless of the engagement proposal, she admits she wants to marry him, but seeing her embarrassment, he pretends he didn't hear her properly. But he can't hide how happy he gets. After that, Belle and Rango return to the village. They report that their trip was a complete success, and give him 30 platinum coins as promised. Van casually hands the pouch to Till, who starts shaking since it's her first time carrying such a large amount. Kamsin asks about Panamera, and Belle replies that she had to report back to Count Ferdinando. He adds that she plans to own land nearby since being Van's ally is better than serving the Count. Kamsin remarks that she could easily do that, while Van thinks she might even become a queen. Rango reveals that they brought a present for him from the capital, and he's stunned to see a modern crossbow capable of firing up to 10 shots in a row. Van immediately gets excited as he can create a new ballista. As he studies the weapon, Arte comments that she has never seen him so happy. However, Van is unable to replicate the design, and she says that even he fails, but realizing how that sounded, she quickly apologizes. Van simply says he fails all the time, and apart from magic, he doesn't have anything else. But she disagrees, pointing out that he's also an amazing swordsman and good at studies, while she has nothing. He then says he will introduce her to his fiendish butler and monstrous commander so she can be just as amazing as he is. Van then asks about her magical aptitude, but she gets sad and quiet. Till assures her that she doesn't have to answer if she doesn't want to, but she reveals that she has marionette magic. He becomes excited as he has never seen it before and asks if she can demonstrate it. He also points out how rare the ability is and says she's the first person he has ever met. He creates a doll from one of his fiber blocks and asks if she can move it. Arte feels comfortable and uses her marionette magic to make it stand. He excitedly grabs her hands and praises her talent. Till also compliments her and asks what else she can do. Arte says she can make puppets dance. Till suggests holding a puppet show for the villagers, and Van also loves the idea. He even offers to create a puppet using the mithril ore she found. Arte says her magic isn't fit for showing off, but Van explains that his father once called him a failure because of his production magic. Yet it brought happiness to countless people, and he's sure she can do the same. Arte is genuinely moved by his words, since she has convinced herself that her magic was worthless. But if Van believes in her, she'll give it a try. That night, a stage is set up in the village square. The villagers are confused about what will happen. Van appears on the stage and welcomes everyone to witness Arte's magic show. The villagers are excited to see what kind of magic she's going to use. Then Arte makes the human-sized puppet stand and bow. Several villagers whisper that it is marionette magic, and recall how someone used it to take out the royal family. This reminds Arte of her mother's behavior towards her, and she freezes on stage. Then Van reassures the audience that there's nothing to fear and she's not going to curse them. He tells them to simply watch what she can do, though he worries about how everyone will view her after this. Recalling her happy moments, Arte gathers her strength and resumes the performance. Her magic makes the puppet dance gracefully across the stage. Its movements leave everyone enchanted by her marionette magic. When the performance ends, the crowd erupts into applause. Arte admits she always thought her magic was awful. Van smiles and says she did it. She hugs him and bursts into tears, thanking him for the opportunity. The next day, Kamsin reports that a carriage bearing the royal family's crest is approaching the village. Van and the others head to the entrance and meet Panamera. Noticing how cheerful Van looks, she jokingly asks if he has found another girl. Arte greets her with a bright smile, leaving her amazed by how much she has changed. She then instructs them to kneel in front of His Majesty. King Dino steps out and formally introduces himself. Accompanying him is his chancellor, Aperta. Dino officially grants Van the title of Baron, elevating him among the ranks of nobility. Van happily accepts the honor, and Dino says he expects great things from him. Dino explains that he came here to verify the claims that he defeated a forest dragon. Van assures him that he'll answer every question honestly. He also hopes that the king and chancellor will keep an open mind. Dino says he's every bit as interesting as Panamera described. Van first takes them atop one of the watchtowers, and from there he shows them the ramparts, gates, moat, and ballistae. Aparta says the ballistae are useful at a limited range, but they're inconvenient to operate. So Van asks Kamsin to demonstrate. Kamsin fires the weapon towards the forest. Dino and Aperta are shocked by its power and speed. Dino then asks about the unusual star-shaped design, and Van explains that it allows them to attack enemies from multiple directions. Panamera adds that this layout is perfect but fails in aerial attacks. Van adds that he made several new weapons but doesn't know if they work until he tests them. When Aperta points out that such development would take several years to complete, Van replies that it took him 4 months. Dino and Aperta are still not convinced, so Panamera suggests that Van demonstrate his abilities. Van agrees and suggests they visit the lake. As they travel through the village, the villagers greet Van. He happily greets them back and says they should have another barbecue together soon. Aperta asks him if a lord can have such casual conversations with his people, and Van says they can. They're more surprised when cheerful adventurers pass by. Van greets them and asks how they're doing. They cheerfully reply they're fine. A stunned Aperta asks who they are, and Van explains that they're adventurers exploring the dungeon. When they reach the lake, they're again shocked to see all the Apkula. Lotta Vesta greets Van, still calling him son-in-law. Dino and Aperta can't believe they're seeing the rare Apkala living peacefully alongside humans. Van tells Esparta that they should build another rampart beyond the lake. So Esparta raises the wall using his magic, and Van uses his production magic to transform it into a concrete structure. Van asks what they would like to see next. Then they meet with the Lotta Vesta in the shelter. After all the formal introductions, Vesta presents Dino with a piece of orichalcum as a sign of respect. Aperta says it's the legendary metal known as the Metal of the Gods, and says that if they forge a sword from it, it would be priceless. Without thinking, Van forges a sword from it and soon realizes what he just did. He acts as if nothing happened, but Dino warns him not to lie to a king, and promises to reward Van if he remains honest. In that case, Van requests that he never be reassigned elsewhere, since he wants to continue building a place where people can live peacefully without any struggle. Dino agrees. Although he believes his talents would be valuable in the capital, he respects his wishes. Later, Dino says he must return to the capital, and he'll visit again to verify the dungeon. Suddenly, someone shouts a dragon, and Van immediately orders everyone to their stations. Moments later, they see a dragon flying over them. Panamera realizes that the creature is a wyvern being controlled by a mage. Aperta adds that wyverns are pack animals and would never attack a village alone, meaning more enemies could be nearby. Dino suspects this is part of an attack by the Kingdom of Yeleneta and warns Van to be careful of the enemy forces. Van realizes that their ballistae bolts won't reach it, so he decides to deploy the new weapon. Meanwhile, a group of knights, led by Prince Uinmog of the Yeleneta Kingdom, is approaching the Sito, but he's annoyed that his father sent him on a mission to a remote village. It is revealed that Yeleneta and Scuderia have been at war for years, and Yeleneta has finally decided to settle the conflict once and for all. Uinmog thinks conquering Sito will be very easy, but the moment he sees the fortress city, he's shocked and wonders how they managed to build something like this in a remote area. He then says that it is just a facade and orders his knights to attack the city, but they can't even break through the main gate. Then Van appears on the rampart, introduces himself as the Lord of Sito, and asks what he can do for the Yeleneta Kingdom. Uinmog asks how he identified them so easily, and Van admits he only bluffed them to reveal themselves. When Uinmog asks how this remote village became a fortress city, he explains that he and the villagers worked together to construct the ramparts and facilities. Uinmog gets angry and tells a knight to signal the mage controlling the wyvern to attack and laughs arrogantly, saying that Van is about to learn how terrifying dragons can be. Van responds by making Panamera fire a new weapon that launches a rain of shurikens that knock the wyvern out of the sky easily. Van explains that he designed the weapon around lightweight blades because they're thin and light. Once again, Dino and Aperta are impressed by Van's creativity. Uinmog notices Dino and asks why the king is present in a remote village. The terrified knights immediately surrender, but Uinmog refuses to give up until an arrow comes at him, barely missing him. Panamera says the next one won't miss. After witnessing everything Van has accomplished, Dino says the kingdom has to reconsider how magical aptitudes are viewed. While interrogating Uinmog, Panamera uses her terrifying skills to make him reveal Yeleneta's plan that they have been preparing this invasion for years. According to the plan, Sito village was supposed to be the easy first target. He also reveals that another army is already attacking the fortress city of Skudet at the moment. She reports everything to the others and they realize Skudet is the real target. Aperta recommends returning to the capital and preparing the defenses. Dino asks Van to join them. He is honored by the request, but he doesn't want to leave the village while it's still developing. Aperta points out that a village having weapons and defenses, capable of defeating armored lizards and dragons, cannot be called undeveloped. Van insists that he has barely done anything and still has so much to do. Panamera bursts into laughter, saying she's excited to see what else he can do, but she thinks he should accept the request, since it is a noble's duty to aid their nation during times of crisis. So he agrees to help defend the kingdom and asks for some time to organize his troops. After the meeting, he informs his friends about his decision. He appoints Esparta in charge of the village during his absence, and Esparta gladly accepts. Then he asks Dee and the Sito chivalric order to come with him. He wants Till and Kamsin to stay back, but both refuse, saying they're coming with him. Van wonders if this will be enough. Just then, Ortho's party asks if they can join the campaign as well, and he accepts. He also asks Ortho to recruit any other adventurers willing to fight, offering 6 gold coins per person. Van asks Kusala to join them as well, since they don't have a scout. When Kusala hesitates, he threatens to ban him from future barbecues. The threat works, and Kusala accepts the job. Panamera tells him that he must report the situation to Count Ferdinando before rejoining them with her own troops. He starts thinking about what weapons he can create. Suddenly, Arte confidently declares that she'll take her puppets, meaning she's coming too. As they prepare to depart, Van says this will be the Cito Chivalric Order's first official campaign, and that their mission is to help defend Scudate. However, he adds that they won't be going to the front lines since their main goal is to return home safely. He explains that as their lord, he's responsible for their lives and he'll do everything in his power to protect them all so they can enjoy barbecue later. Meanwhile, Marquis Jalpa learns about the attack on Scudate City and immediately begins preparing his forces. His butler reports that Van has earned the title of Baron after slaying a dragon, but he refuses to believe that his son can battle a dragon without any elemental magic. When Jalpa reaches Scudate's south gate, he finds the impregnable ramparts destroyed. Yelenetta's wyvern group notices them and attacks by dropping a few balls, nearly wiping their forces, yet they leave without finishing them off, leaving Jalpa deeply confused. Meanwhile, at the city's west gate, Arte uses her marionette magic to control her puppet to kill multiple wyverns. Van calls her incredible. Ortho can't believe that Scudate fell so quickly and says their wyverns played a major role. Van agrees and notes that the damage to the city's south gate is huge. Dee mentions that Scudate's knights must be responding well, but they still need some time to retreat. So Van decides to keep fighting to buy the knights some more time. Soon, the enemy soldiers discover Van's group. They quickly engage in a battle with the new weapons Van created. When a wyvern charges toward Van, Arte's puppet instantly kills it before it can reach him. As more enemy soldiers arrive, Van orders his group to fall back for now since he doesn't want any casualties and tells them to run as fast as possible. Elsewhere, Jalpa begins reorganizing his surviving troops to prepare for an attack. Still, he can't understand why the enemy left without killing them. Mercia joins him with his army and apologizes for the delay. Then King Dino arrives as well and asks Jalpa what happened. Jalpa explains that Scudate has fallen, and that his troops were attacked by their new weapons, but suddenly their wyverns stopped pursuing them and headed for the west gate. Dino replies that they were drawn away by Baron Van's reinforcements, and further explains how Van has developed Cito and even defeated a dragon. Jalpa refuses to believe it and argues that Van doesn't have any elemental magic. Dino asks if he's calling his king a liar, but he says he isn't. Dino then asks Mercia if he's jealous that his younger brother achieved glory before him, but he replies that he's actually proud of Van. That night, Van's group camps in the forest and discusses their next move. Arte admits that witnessing war for the first time was terrifying, and she hates seeing innocent people suffer. Van agrees, but since they're allied with Panamera, who is involved in the war, he believes they have to provide a form of aid, so he decides to build a new catapult to provide additional support. He creates a big catapult and plans to make 20 stationary and 5 mobile models, but he wonders how to transport them to the city. Then he comes up with the idea to create more on site in the morning. The next day, Van's group travels towards Scudate. Although Van doesn't want to return to the battlefield, Dee points out that they have reached the closest city to Scudate, where most of the kingdom's army has regrouped. There, he comes face to face with his father after a long time. Jalpa demands to know how Van managed to rise in rank and how he defeated a dragon. He points out that even he can't defeat a dragon alone and had to mobilize all his knights. Van says he used Balliste to defeat it, yet Jalpa still refuses to believe him. Just then, Panamera arrives and asks whether she is interrupting a father-son reunion. Van says it's fine, and Panamera informs him that Dino is eagerly waiting to see what new weapon he has prepared this time. Van asks Jalpa if he would like to see his Balliste after the meeting, and Panamera adds that it would be beneficial. She also asks if he would consider selling her the new weapon, to which he says they can discuss it later. She then escorts him and Jalpa to meet Dino, where he's impressed by the royal guards. Though she calls them amazing warriors, she also mentions that with his new gear, he might have a chance to defeat them. Inside the building, all of the Scuderia's nobles have gathered to plan how to retake their city. Van notices Arte's father, Count Ferdinando, among the elites. Aperta mentions that Yelenteta has succeeded in capturing Scudate after years of preparation. The reason is their large wyvern force and a new weapon, the Black Balls. Dino says that they can't win unless they find a way to neutralize the wyverns. Jalpa describes how the creatures drop black balls from above, which explode upon impact. When Aperta asks Van for his opinion, Van replies that they need to attack the wyverns before they can drop the balls. The other nobles make fun of having a child among them. However, Dino ignores them and asks him to lead the front lines in the operation. But he immediately denies, which surprises everyone. Dino asks if he doesn't want the glory that comes with leading the attack, but he says that he just doesn't want to get hurt. The others call him a selfish brat, and Jalpa angrily reminds him that he's only the lord of a small remote village. But Dino tells Jalpa to stop so Van can continue. Van explains he was assigned to a tiny village that could easily have been destroyed. Although he has reliable allies, he doesn't have any support from his family. He's afraid that the village would not be able to defend if the enemy attacks while he's not there. A noble asks if Yeleneta would even bother attacking such a small village. Aperta mentions that Yeleneta actually sent a group to attack Sito, and the enemy is really serious about crushing them. Van says that he simply wants to protect the village he and his citizens built together and he can't afford to get hurt. Count Ferdinando asks if he's confident he can counter the enemy army, and he says that he can. He explains that he's ready to prepare new ballistae and catapults. Dino and Aperta find his words reassuring, while the others doubt him. Even Jalpa asks if he truly understands the seriousness of the situation but he interrupts him and asks for permission to show what he can do in person, using his production magic to instantly create a catapult and a ballistae. He asks Jalpa's opinion. Jalpa replies they're just for show and useless before walking away to reorganize his army. Meanwhile, Dino asks if they can win with these weapons. Van explains that his catapults are capable of launching specially made shuriken on wyverns, although he cannot guarantee anything unless they try. Dino says he's counting on him and dismisses everyone for the day. After the meeting, he meets Till, who is here to pick him up. She mentions that Arte is nearby meeting her father. She asks if her mother is doing well, and he replies that she's fine staying at home as usual. He adds that he's busy preparing for war and suggests they speak again after things settle down. Seeing her sad, Van asks if she is okay and tells Till to take her back. Later, he meets with his group and assigns Kamsin to operate the catapults to defeat those wyverns. Kamsin says he'll not let him down. Dee says that the chivalric order will protect Kamsin's squad. Panamera notes that Yeleneta easily took the impregnable fortress city of Scudate with the help of wyverns and their new weapon. Dee asks if she thinks Yeleneta possesses the greatest military at present, but she says maybe Van does with the weapons he can create. Soon, the army is ready to retake control of Scudette and the knights charge ahead at full strength. Van reminds his group that their goal is to defeat the wyverns. Ortho tells his group to support the knights wherever the fighting becomes difficult, while Dee orders his team to defend the artillery squad. The Yeleneta commander notices if they're willing to destroy the ramparts they themselves built and orders his archers to fire. Seeing the arrows approaching, Van orders his troops to raise the shields he designed. Seeing this, the enemy commander orders the mages to attack, but the shields easily manage to block them as well. Though the knight strats struggling, an enemy commander claims no shield can stand against their mages' attack. Suddenly, a small group of mages attack the northern gate led by Panamera. That includes Murcia, Puriel, Count Ferdinando and Jalpa. They all use their elemental magic to destroy the gate, allowing the army to enter the city. Van is happy that their plan worked, while the enemy commander realizes how they distracted them and orders his army to charge. Dee's squad finds itself surrounded. Fortunately, Panamera helps them, and Dee orders his men to grab the opportunity and push forward. Elsewhere, Ortho rescues a struggling Jalpa and tells his squad to attack. The enemy knights can't defend themselves against Puriel's abilities and Kusala's quick attacks in close combat, while the other adventurers take down the other knights. The Yeleneta commander can't believe they're struggling this much and orders the wyvern squad to charge. As the flying monsters approach the battlefield, Kamsin tells his team to fire the catapults, which rain down shurikens and take out all the wyverns. Van is happy that his plan worked. However, one large wyvern survives the first attack. Orto and Kusala charge forward to pin it down long enough for Kamsin's squad to launch ballistae bolts and injure the creature. Then, Panamera follows up with a giant fireball to burn it. Finally, Dee charges and slices its head in a single strike. Panamera announces that they have defeated all the wyverns, and the knights celebrate the win. Count Ferdinando remarks that Van's abilities are really impressive, while Jalpa silently watches. Then Ortho and Kusala tell the Yeleneta commander to surrender. When the battle ends, Jalpa leaves without talking to Van despite Murcia's objections. though he realizes that he was wrong about Van. Elsewhere, Van's group celebrates the victory, though he insists he only gave the commands, and they're the ones who fought the enemy. Arte is glad that everyone came unharmed. Then Ortho's party enters with the captured commander. Panamera interrogates him, and he reveals that Yelenetta planned to attack 3 cities simultaneously, and the 3rd city is Ferdinando County, Arte's hometown. After hearing this, Arte immediately asks Van to let her go. Van wants to accompany her, but she refuses, saying it is a family matter. Van has never seen her act so stubborn. She soon apologizes for yelling at him and says she knows he wants to help. The others point out that Van is the lord of a small village, and if he saves the county, Count Ferdinando could lose his status and land. Van realizes they have a point and agrees to let her go. Ortho's party volunteers to escort her and promises to protect her with their lives. When Arte and the adventurers arrive at Ferdinando County, they find the city already under attack. She is terrified and worries about her mother. She panics and runs forward, but stops as the Wyvern squad drops the black balls to bomb the city. Ortho believes that they can turn the tide if they attack immediately. However, she refuses to send them in because she wants someone from House Ferdinando to drive the enemy away, but he asks how she'll fight alone. Meanwhile, inside the castle, Arte's mother, Sharon, and her older sister watch the destruction. Sharon tells her daughter not to worry and explains that she will make her death look like a clean suicide like a noblewoman should do, but the girl cannot stop crying. As Sharon watches her, she remembers Arta. Elsewhere, the enemy commander declares that Ferdinato's army is no match for them and that they're going to win. Suddenly, one of the wyverns is knocked out of the sky by Arte's knight, like puppet, cutting creatures one by one. The enemy knights wonder what it is. Then they spot a flag of House Ferdinato over a nearby hill. They assume the kingdom has sent reinforcements and decides to attack them. Arte admits that it will be harder for her to fight since she lacks experience. Yet she will do whatever she can. She asks the adventurers for their support and help her save her homeland. Ortho asks what her plan is, and she decides to head to the front line and begins running. She sends her puppet into battle, and it immediately begins cutting the enemy soldiers. The adventurers also charge ahead. Ortho slices through the knights, Puriel freezes soldiers with her magic, and Kusala kills them off. When one knight charges at Kusala, Arte sends her puppet to shield him, but it loses an arm in the process. Still, it continues fighting without hesitation. As the battle proceeds, the enemy manages to surround the puppet, but the adventurers interrupt, and together they defeat all the attackers. Unfortunately, a large number of wyverns soon enters the battlefield. The enemy commander orders them to attack Arte's puppet, so she summons a second puppet to help. The adventurers are shocked to discover that she can control 2 puppets at once. The enemy rushes to attack them. Despite that, she refuses to give up, and both puppets attack the monsters. She reveals that she considered herself a failure because of this marionette magic, the aptitude that made everyone hate her. However, Van encouraged her and helped her realize that she could use it to help people. As her puppets continue destroying wyverns, the adventurers are amazed by her incredible power. Arte declares that she'll save her family using this magic. Eventually, both her puppets manage to defeat all the wyverns, which forces Yelenetta's army to retreat. The adventurers celebrate their victory. After the battle, Arte thanks Van for creating the puppets that helped her save her homeland. Back in the castle, Count Ferdinando informs his wife and elder daughter that 2 puppets were responsible for forcing the enemy to fall back. He also reveals that a white-haired girl was commanding the reinforcements. They quickly realize that it was Arte who saved them, even after they treated her poorly and sent her away. The adventurers ask if she is not going to meet her parents. She replies that it would only cause them trouble. They argue that countless people survived because of her puppets, but she decides to return to Cedo instead. When they finally arrive home, everyone meets her at the entrance. Van asks her what's wrong. She replies that she still lacks the confidence to issue orders as he does, but he refuses to believe that because he knows how incredible her abilities are. He also points out that she's no longer the scared girl who first arrived in Cetos, but she is not sure, so he says that she did well, which makes her emotional, and she begins to cry. He gently comforts her, and she says she's home. Sometime later, Van continues improving the village. He builds a shopping complex and a new inn. While walking through the town, he remembers how different everything looked when he first arrived. Belle and Rango announce that their shop has all the latest products from the kingdom. The cheerful adventurers help the elders travel around while the Apocalypse continue enjoying living alongside humans. Next, the villagers gather for another feast. Everyone enjoys the barbecue meat, while Panamera competes with the knights in a drinking contest. Van reflects on everything that has happened. His father kicked him out and made him the lord of a remote village. Thanks to all the support of his friends, this village became something precious to him in a short time. Suddenly, Esparta says that it's time to resume his studies, while Dee wants to train him to make him the greatest swordsman. The two start arguing, which makes Van run away. Everyone watches them and cheers for Van to run faster. As he runs, he recalls happy moments and says he'll continue making this place better. That's all for today. If you want the next part, comment next part. We'll make it once this video hits 10,000 likes. Also, tell us which character you like the most in the comments, and thanks for watching. You guys are the best.